Good morning, and welcome to this training session. I am Maria de Los Angeles Carpinteiro, a pharmaceutical chemist, and I will be your instructor for this course. Today, we're going to talk about the cold chain, also known as the cold network. Let's get started. Thank you very much for being here. In today's session, we'll cover the objective and scope of application of what is known as the cold chain or cold network, including reference and definitions, as well as symbols and abbreviations. We will also talk about the importance of the chain, what it is, its consequence, how to detect issues, what happens if it breaks, and what occurs when there are losses due to problems with the cold chain for any reason. This cold chain is mainly aimed at food and medicine. Also, there are other products that may also require temperature control. The transport industry also plays a key role. Think of a chain where all the links must stay connected. We need to work as a team and understand what is necessary to make it work, because our role and responsibilities are vital. We'll also talk about the function of the equipment. How long the cold chain lasts, its main limitations, and the personal hygiene that must be maintained. We have briefly discussed hygiene before, as it is required by regulation, and will now touch on some very important points, including cleaning, instructions, supervision, and practical tips. Let's begin. If you have a notebook and want to take notes, or if you like to ask questions and review them later, we are here for anything you may need. The main objective and application of the cold chain, also known as the cold network, is to maintain the proper temperature for sensitive products such as perishable food, medicines, and vaccines. We also mentioned earlier that there may be other reagents requiring specific refrigeration or freezing conditions. Everything must arrive in optimal condition for final consumption, ensuring that the properties and effectiveness of these products are preserved. We will review all the elements involved in this cold chain or network, focusing mainly on food and pharmaceuticals. A scope of application. The cold chain involves a process that starts in the field with farmers and continues through processing, transportation, and storage or distribution. The goal is to ensure both quality and safety. There are various definitions of the cold chain. One simple definition, it is a system that keeps temperature-sensitive products at low temperatures from production to consumption. A more technical definition describes it as a set of process and equipment that ensures the preservation of perishable products at specific temperatures, maintaining their quality and safety. Safety in this context means being free from bacteria or any other factors that could cause harm to health. Another definition, focused on healthcare, states that it's a logical system that ensures the preservation of vaccines and medicines at controlled temperatures. This is crucial because if a medication or vaccine loses its effectiveness due to improper temperature control, it becomes useless, especially when intended for children or vulnerable individuals. Another definition, specific to food, describes the cold chain as a series of stages that control the temperature of food from production to final consumption, also preventing spoilage. Remember, when we talk about refrigerated or temperature-controlled food, we need to ensure not just the external condition, but also the internal quality is well maintained. As with many topics we have discussed, there are symbols we need to be aware of. Some people may refer to these as technical indicators. Since we have been referring to the cold chain or cold network, it's important to recognize its associated symbols. Have you seen any? Well, take a look at some images. One symbol is a snowflake. It indicates that the transport vehicle or storage area contains frozen or refrigerated products. It's important to recognize this. We have also discussed thermometers. These are critical tools in the cold chain process. All thermometers must be properly calibrated. There is also the use of clocks or calendars, which are used to track the time and expiration of products. Just like any shelving system, storage can be indefinite. So, constant monitoring is essential. Some arrows indicate circulation. This refers to airflow and the direction it moves in, which must also be considered. Doors and containers are also crucial points. It is important to remember that frequent opening and closing should be avoided, as this allows warm air to enter. To ensure our cold chambers, refrigerators, or vehicles maintain proper temperatures, it is best to have excellent logistics. This is a very important consideration. Abbreviations. It's also important to become familiar with common abbreviations used in the industry. When you see or hear them, you should understand what they mean in the food, pharmaceutical, cosmetics, and herbal industry. It's often assumed that these abbreviations are understood. Some examples include cámara frigorífica, cold chamber, refrigeración, refrigeration, congelación, freezing, degrees Celsius, temperature unit, degrees Fahrenheit, temperature unit, Food and Drug Administration, U.S. Regulatory Agency, Organización Mundial de la Salud, World Health Organization, Good Distribution Practice, Good Manufacturing Practice. Importance of the cold chain. I would like to encourage greater awareness of this topic. Working in this company and being part of this process involves handling critical information. Our sense of duty, both professional and human, requires that we understand what we are doing. Please take a moment to write down what the cold chain means to you and why you believe it's important. What is the cold chain? As we have seen in the definitions, the cold chain is a system designed to ensure that food, medicine, and other perishable products are kept at a specific temperature from the moment they are produced until they reach the end consumer. Here, we are talking about specific temperatures, though a definite range is not provided. However, we know that refrigeration typically ranges from 0 to approximately 4 to 5 Celsius degrees, and freezing can range from 0 down to -30 or even -5 Celsius degrees. For some companies, the exact temperature is not specified because it depends on the requirements of the specific products. There are images where I would like us to pay attention to the installations, the cold chambers, how they are controlled, and how hygiene, cleanliness, and organization are maintained. We will go over all of this step by step. Why is this so important? Because we aim to achieve through the cold chain is the preservation of quality. Cold temperatures slow down the growth of bacteria and other microorganisms that cause food to spoil. What happens when food spoils? We notice changes in flavor, texture, and nutritional value. This is why it's so important to understand the significance of the cold chain. We also need to maintain safety by preventing the proliferation of bacteria that can grow when the cold chain is compromised. Sometimes we don't consider what happens if something isn't properly frozen or refrigerated, or what occurs when products are exposed to temperatures outside the required range. These products are called perishables for a reason. For example, when frozen items thaw and freeze, you may notice the formation of crystals or frost. This indicates that the item has been subject to temperature fluctuations. This becomes a health risk. When the cells of food, break due to freezing and thawing water is released, this water becomes a breeding ground for bacteria. Remember, just like humans, plants and animals have cells, and once these are damaged, microbial growth is accelerated, potentially leading to foodborne illness. Maintaining the cold chain also helps to extend shelf life. It's noted that if the cold chain is properly maintained, food can last 8 months to a year without additives. In today's market, many products like carrots, strawberries, mangoes are frozen without additives, and their shelf life is warranted through refrigeration and freezing alone. There are also processed foods with added preservatives that allows for even longer shelf life, especially when combined with cold chain process, up to or beyond 1 year. So, how does the cold chain or cold network work? It involves keeping products at a specific temperature from the time they are produced until they reach the final consumer. We can say that refrigeration or freezing must always be set to a specific degree, because some products might require storage at 4 Celsius degree, and exposing them to lower temperature could damage them, and on the other hand, some items may need to be kept at 0, 1, or 2 Celsius degree. This is why a universal temperature isn't specified. It varies by product. Let's look at what's included in the process and how it works. For example, in the case of frozen foods, from the moment they are harvested, some companies already have facilities in place to blanch certain vegetables or fruits immediately after harvest. Right after blanching, they begin the freezing process. These companies lower the temperature to -30, -40, or even -50 Celsius degree using highly specialized equipment. This approach helps maintain very high quality by preventing the formation of large ice crystals and minimizing water infiltration, which preserves the integrity of the product. After freezing, the products are immediately stored and the logistics for transportation and distribution are organized. In terms of logistics, storage includes refrigerators, freezers, and cold chambers. Transportation involves refrigerated trucks with isothermal containers. Distribution includes warehouse and retail points with temperature control systems. We are looking at an image that shows how companies manage their controls, what is being stored, how it's arranged, and we'll go over their system step by step. Since companies manufacture in batches, they also need to monitor inventory rotation. This is where the first in, first out system is applied. We'll explore that in more detail later. Now, let's talk about examples of products that require a cold chain. Have you ever stopped to think about how many products rely on this system to reach us in good condition? As consumers, we rely on the guarantee of quality and safety. If you work in transportation, you play a critical role in this process. A broken cold chain can endanger health or prevent products from reaching consumers at all. It's essential to stay aware and responsible for what we are handling. Let's look at household refrigerator. Something many of us open several times a day. Inside, we often store meat, fish, fruits, vegetables, ice cream, and so on, all of which fall under the umbrella of cold chain logistics. And when it comes to medications, many of them, such as vaccines, insulin, and other pharmaceuticals, require very specific refrigeration or freezing conditions. Why is this so important? Sometimes we feel the industry is too strict or demanding. But as we have discussed, if something spoils, it loses its effectiveness. In the case of vaccines, administering a degraded product won't bring any benefit. And in some cases, it might even cause harm. This is why such strict and rigorous standards are necessary in the pharmaceutical field. In summary, the cold chain is an essential system to ensure that products reach the consumer in optimal condition. It's important to remember that, at some point, we are all consumers, just as there are companies that invest significant resources into making these products available. We also rely on their quality, especially in the case of medications, where we need them to be effective and respond to any health-related need. The proper implementation of the cold chain is critical for both public health and economy. Let's take a moment to reflect on the consequence of a cold chain failure. We have already discussed how the process starts in the field, with careful selection and handling, and how everything is done to immediately begin refrigeration or freezing process to preserve nutrients. But what happens if that chain breaks? Just like anything else, there are risks and consequences. In the case of food, deterioration can occur. We all know the taste, smell, and texture of fresh fruit, vegetables, and meat. When the cold chain is broken, we may experience a loss of flavor, texture, and nutrition. Unpleasant odors or taste may develop, and we instinctively reject them. This change happens because when the chain is broken and the cells of these products are no longer kept at proper temperatures, bacterial growth accelerates. These include opportunistic bacteria that are always present in our bodies and the environment, but which flourish under improper storage conditions. When cells break due to thawing and refreezing, moisture is released, creating the perfect environment for bacteria to multiply, which can lead to foodborne illness. We have all heard of illness like salmonellosis, listeria, or E. coli, caused by contaminated food. These are considered sanitary risks, and when outbreaks occur on a large scale, authorities like COFEPRIS, Mexico's health regulation agency, may intervene to investigate and trace the source of the contamination. In addition to health risks, a broken cold chain can result in economic loss. If it is discovered that products were not kept at the correct temperature, they must be discarded. This can lead to consumer complaints, and in a connected world, bad news spreads quickly, damaging the company's reputation and brand. From a public health perspective, COFEPRIS monitors sanitary risks and may act when outbreaks lead to hospitalization or fatalities, which often makes headlines. Why does this happen? Often, it's because the products are meant to help people who are already ill. These individuals seek effective solutions and trust that products kept in the cold chain are safe. If those items are poorly stored, transported, distributed, or processed, they can do more harm than good, aggravating existing health issues. In training materials, we see equipment, transport process, and how everyone involved must stay aligned. We'll need to know how we're doing our jobs and strive for optimal ideal execution. Failures can occur due to equipment breakdowns, lack of maintenance, or insufficient planning. Regulations require documentation, planning, and monitoring. In companies, especially regarding transport, we must also pay attention to other elements involved: thermometers, alarms, and sensors, not just the vehicle. Poor handling, like frequent door openings, overloading, or failure to properly stack or space items, can also disrupt air circulation, affecting temperature consistency throughout the transport unit. Even packing failures, loss of insulation, or increased humidity from overflowing can compromise product safety. For example, seals, like rubber gaskets, on doors must be inspected and maintained. They play an essential role too. To prevent this, we must take the following steps. Maintain constant temperature monitoring. There are also companies that perform temperature mapping to check whether refrigeration and freezing chambers are operating correctly. We must use thermometers and alarm systems, and remember, everything must be calibrated. We should have document plans, know how often checks are done, and be fully aware of our responsibilities while working. If we notice that a thermometer is likely inaccurate or an alarm system is not functioning properly, we must report it immediately. We should never say, "I didn't realize it wasn't working," or "I noticed but I ignored it," because that can lead to serious consequences in this process. Preventive maintenance plays a key role. It includes cleaning, regular calibrations, and staff training. The word training comes from the idea of building capacity to do things. It is essential for staff to receive this training, so they understand and implement good storage and transportation practice. Packing must be appropriate. It should include thermal insulation and shock protection. If a product is fragile or requires specific handling, especially in mixed loads with items from different clients, proper logistics must be followed to prevent problems. Transportation routes must be efficient. We must minimize transit time. In many cities, we face unexpected road closures, protests, or delays. Monitoring traffic via chat or alerts can help, and while some things can't be predicted, it's always better to leave early or plan routes during more accessible hours. This is essential when planning transportation routes. In summary, breaking the cold chain is a serious issue with severe consequences. To prevent it, temperature control measures must be implemented at every stage of the supply chain. Although we might not always realize it, many of the other people involved in these operations work in shifts around the clock. In these companies, especially those dealing with refrigerated and frozen products, there is always personnel monitoring maintenance and overseeing process. It's critical that we get used to this mindset, being attentive and observant, and fully aware of everything our clients are doing. It's part of our responsibility to help ensure the cold chain is preserved at all times.